Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Fanatic, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Skellboy Refractured by Umaiki Games. In Skellboy, the world has been ravaged by Squaremon, a sorcerer that has just used the Blaze Mace to raise undead hordes across the Cubold Kingdom. In Squaremon's haste, he's also resurrected a lone skeleton that sets off not to serve the wicked mage, but rather to stop him and lay everything to rest. And you'd better get used to these square-related puns, because you'll be seeing a lot of them, with squares, pixels, cubes, and dice being interjected into just about every sentence. You'll travel across the kingdom fighting off numerous monsters along your way, all while swapping out body parts like a Lego minifig to gain new abilities. Like a minifig, you'll have three main parts: a head, a torso, and legs. Each of these will have different abilities with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes a specific part will be required to get past a puzzle, but that aside, you'll be able to mix and match them as you see fit. You'll also be able to collect various weapons to help you along your way, including more standard fare like swords and axes, but also be able to use goofier choices like stale baguettes and giant pencils to fend off your enemies. Some weapons are simple upgrades of others of their type, while others will have strange effects. For example, there's a magical axe that you can throw like a boomerang, and a magical rod that can slow down time after striking a foe with a charged swat. Combat is pretty straightforward. Hit enemies with your weapon of choice, avoid getting hit yourself. It feels almost like the swordplay from the 2D Zelda titles. Basic combat gets a little repetitive over time, though you are allowed to simply run through most areas and avoid fights if you tire of them. Where combat does shine are the boss battles, each of which are pretty unique. Even with the recurring boss character you have to battle, each of his fights feels very different from each other. The game does start out a bit slow. At the onset of the game, walking from place to place is your only means of travel. This means that if there's a particular part that you want, you have to take the time to backtrack to that location and then return to where it's needed. This feels slow, clunky, and unnecessary. About halfway through the game's story, you'll be able to access the cathedral, and please go in there as soon as you find it. Inside, you'll receive a key which lets you enter any of the checkpoint graves, re-equip any weapons or body parts you've collected throughout the game, and teleport to any checkpoint you've previously visited. When I finally unlocked this, it instantly made the game go from a tireless trudge to an enjoyable adventure. I honestly think that this option should have just been available to players from the onset. On the plus side of things, the game looks absolutely gorgeous. It has a cartoony art style that's very reminiscent of Paper Mario, while still having enough personality to be something all its own. The cartoony, pixelated look is crisp and clean, and despite the simplistic art style, it still makes great use of lighting and particle effects to really sell the illusion. Music is equally goofy, and quite fitting for the tone of the game. On the downside, I didn't really find the humor to be enjoyable. As mentioned before, it felt like it was primarily just a collection of quadrilateral quips, with little substance beyond that. And it doesn't really affect the score at all, but I do need to mention that this has one of the best cameos in video game history. I will do an entire video just to explain how satisfying that high is. But not today. I'm not going to go into story details beyond what I've already shared. Plot really isn't a big selling point of this game. There is one twist at the end, but it's really not worth going into a separate section to discuss. This is not a plot-driven game, nor does it try to be. After you finish the game's story mode, Refractured adds quite a bit of content for players to keep enjoying it. Firstly, you have a Zelda-like second quest. It's not as long as the first one, but it does have more difficult challenges and even some new foes to face. In addition to that, you also have a roguelike mode where you'll be able to fight through endless randomized dungeons. It's not technically post-game content, as you can unlock it before you beat the final boss, but you'll probably want to sharpen your skills in story mode before you attempt to brave these brutal depths. Difficulty-wise, the game is above average. Far from the hardest game I've seen, but not easy by any means either. But it does suffer from a bit of a reverse difficulty curve in my opinion. You get access to much better parts as the game goes on, but the enemies don't seem to scale to match. This results in a very difficult early game, but a much easier late game, which is the opposite of how it should flow. The game could also benefit from some sort of map system. The Cubold Kingdom isn't particularly large, with the main story being about 6 hours long, but it would be nice to have a way to navigate around, especially when backtracking early game. All in all, Skellboy is a brief yet enjoyable adventure, with Refractured adding plenty of extra content for those who aren't satisfied with the short story mode. Visually, the game looks amazing, and music and sound effects fit perfectly with the style and tone set by the graphics. The dialogue is pretty underwhelming, and combat outside of boss fights is a little lackluster, but the bosses that are there are quite enjoyable to challenge. In conclusion, I find Skellboy is a bit of a mixed bag, but the good does outweigh the bad in the end, making it worthy of a solid 7.0 out of 10. Skellboy Refractured is available on Steam, while the original version is also available on the Nintendo Switch. If you're interested in purchasing or learning more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Skellboy? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below, and please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.